December 1775. Patriot forces earned an overwhelming victory at Great Bridge in the first major Virginia battle of the American Revolution. But just before this colonial triumph, British and Loyalist troops scored a win that ultimately set up their downfall. The skirmish at Kemp's Landing in this edition of History Through the Lens.
The first shots fired in the American Revolution in 1775 at Lexington and Concord, well, it came to Virginia that fall. Hi, I'm Tom Schaad. In this edition of History Through the Lens, we're going to talk about a little-known battle here in Hampton Roads. It is called the Skirmish at Kemp's Landing, and I have two very knowledgeable and esteemed people who can tell me all about this, and I'm going to introduce them to you right now. Suzanne Camden, or Suzanne Slack Camden, I should say, from the Daughters of the American Revolution, the local branch, the Princess Anne chapter, and Patrick Hannum, who is from the Norfolk Sons of American Revolution, and happy to see you both. You are a historian, too, as well, Patrick.
Yes, sir.
And, I want to start off with 1775. We're at the fall. There are words of skirmishes breaking out in the countrysides in New England and up and down the coast. And now it's coming to Hampton Roads, to Virginia, Great Bridge, Kemp's Landing. Can you describe that area at the time? What is it like in 1775, October, November of that year for the Patriots and for the British here?
Well, the city of Williamsburg was the seat of governance of the royal colony of Virginia. Norfolk is, in fact, the largest port city in Virginia, population a little over 6,000 people. It is the largest port city between New York and Charleston that has easy access to the Chesapeake Bay. And the Chesapeake Bay supports a transit of about 40% of the commerce of the original 13 colonies, transit up and down.
Very strategic area.
Very strategic. And the waterways work as kind of fingers that lead into the Piedmont of Virginia. So you can easily extract, using shallow draft vessels, all the resources that come out of Virginia. And it is the most populous and the most economically productive of the 13 colonies at the time.
So, Suzanne, what about the culture at that time in 1775 here in Virginia, especially Hampton Roads? We have, of course, Patriots and Loyalists. What was that like here in Virginia at that time?
So at the time, I'm not sure that they were thinking about the Patriots and the Loyalists, because as we discussed a little while ago, they had been under their own rule, or so they thought, for quite a while. So it wasn't until the gunpowder incident in April of 1775 that they realized that there was going to start to be more of a segregation between the Patriots and the Loyalists.
So the gunpowder incident, you can explain that.
Up in Williamsburg, well, it was right after Lexington and Concord, the governors were told to seize all of the gunpowder storage. And so Lord Dunmore, who was the governor of Virginia at the time, went and had the gunpowder stores seized. So the people realized that suddenly their weapons weren't going to be used for them. They were potentially going to be used against them. So that started the colony of Virginia on the idea that perhaps they were split and suddenly it wasn't us, them.
So I know we were talking earlier off camera that, like you said, 150 years pretty much of self-rule.
Yes.
We didn't really feel that we were subjects of Great Britain, did we?
No, it's the issue of, are you a citizen or are you a subject? And so those that were happy with the crown and how the king was handling things and Parliament was handling things were content to be subjects. But most of the folks viewed themselves as citizens. And they did not like the idea that Parliament could just arbitrarily make a law without their consent. And so there's a whole series of legislation that occurs in the 10 or 12 years prior to the actual events of 1775 starting with Lexington and Concord and then moving down here into the other colonies, that led to folks to believe that, our rights are being violated by our own government.
And we hear the no taxation without representation,
Yes.
the cries through the streets. Go ahead, Suzanne.
And Norfolk was a bustling sea town at the time, and many of the wealthier people had townhomes there and spent their social time there. And then the surrounding Norfolk and Princess Anne counties, they had their farms. So that's important to note that Williamsburg was the seat of the government, but I think a lot of the social society, it was all happening in Norfolk.
That's interesting. And more of the farming
Yes.
and the agriculture, which was 95% of the economy during colonial
Which
times.
they owned.
If I'm not mistaken, right. That was around Great Bridge and around
Princess Anne
Princess
County,
Anne
which
County.
is now Virginia Beach,
Right.
Norfolk, that whole area. And it was largely accessible via water, and there was a lot of swamp.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, you were going to say something, Patrick.
So we today don't really realize what it was like here. We've drained the swamps. We've built highways, tunnels, drainage ditches everywhere. And so the waterways were critical. And just to get from Williamsburg to Great Bridge, where the big battle takes place, and then move on up to Kemp's Landing and Norfolk, is over 100 miles, because you have to go around the north edge of the Great Dismal Swamp.
And that's a long way to go if you're
It
an
is.
army, right?
It's a long way to bring your wagons. Remember, there's no transportation other than your feet, horses, and the wagons that pull your supplies.
You spent 29 years in the Marines, so you know all about
Lots of walking.
lots of walking and marching, right? So, yeah, that must have been it's something hard for us to fathom when you talk about getting around an area as difficult, swampy and wet, and no roads,
Right.
and no modern transportation infrastructure to speak of.
And so the British control the waterways. The Patriots have no navy, and they cannot get here by water. And that's the primary mode of transportation. There are ferries everywhere. The British try to interdict those ferries. The waterways are all, they're not as deep as the main shipping channels, but they're sufficient for the shallow draft vessels. So that is the primary issue that the Patriots face. They have land forces and no navy, and the British control the waterways.
Okay, and we're getting up now to the skirmish at Kemp's Landing, and we're going to take a quick break right now and come back and discuss what led up to that skirmish and the skirmish itself on this edition of History Through the Lens. Back on this edition of History Through the Lens, I'm Tom Schaad. Virginia 250 is the big topic this year, with the 250th birthday of America. We'll be celebrating all year long into, of course, the birthday of July 4th, 1776. That'll mark 250 years in 2026. Joining me today to talk about a very important local battle, Suzanne Camden and Patrick Hannum. Suzanne, of course, the Daughters of the American Revolution, and Patrick Hannum is a member of the Sons of the American Revolution. And we're talking about the skirmish at Kemp's Landing, which immediately preceded the Battle of Great Bridge. We all talk about the Battle of Great Bridge. We've covered it many times here at Wavy, the reenactment. It is a very well-known battle here, but this one kind of set the stage for that. So tell us, how did the skirmish at Kemp's Landing come about, and why is it so important to this discussion?
Well, Tom, the skirmish at Kemp's Landing really grew out of an operation by Dunmore to try to root out the Patriots who were trying to train to oppose him. They were creating military forces. And it was an organization called the Princess Anne District Minute Battalion that was training at Kemp's Landing. Now, a Minute Battalion was a idea that came from Massachusetts.
The Minutemen.
Yes, the
Yeah.
Minutemen of Massachusetts. And Congress, the Continental Congress, directed each of the colonies to establish their own minute service. They did not want to create a large standing army. They had a fear of that. So they wanted to limit this to sort of a militia that's really ready to go. So that was the idea, and they had to be volunteers. So all these men that were at Kemp's Landing were volunteers, but there were no. There was a shortage of weapons. There was the powder, lead, weapons, military supplies, cartridges, boxes, all the things that you would need to go to war and create an army. There's a shortage. So they would resort to the counties and ask the counties to create this. And they created these military districts. The Princess Anne district included Princess Anne County, Norfolk County, the borough of Norfolk, Nasmond County, and Isle of Wight County. And they would create these units and try to train them.
Ready at a minute's notice.
That's
Ready to go. That's right.
Minutemen.
That's who was at Kemp's Landing training. We don't know exactly how many men, but probably around 200. We don't even know whether they were all armed or not. They certainly didn't have bayonets. And they attempted to interdict the movement of the British troops under the command of Lord Dunmore.
So Dunmore sends the British in here saying, okay, we're going to just move, right? So what got them moving in this situation?
Dunmore is attempting to interdict the supplies and the training of these units so that they are not capable of actually participating in combat.
Got it.
So he first goes down to Great Bridge because he hears that there's some units forming there. It probably was some of the North Carolina men that came up. But they disappear into the swamps as soon as Dunmore shows up. And of course, he moved by water down the southern branch of the Elizabeth River and then came ashore near Great Bridge. When he finds no one there, he realizes that the strategic importance of that location, because Great Bridge is the meeting point between the end of the southern branch of the Elizabeth River and the beginning of the southern watershed that drains into the Albemarle Sound in North Carolina. And he realized that was a critical point. Now, there was a causeway and a highway built there to span that swampy area. And that was critical because it's about a quarter mile or so of elevated above the swamp. It's there where there's a large bridge, often called the Long Bridge. And so he decides to leave a detachment there and build a fort. And then he hears that there are Patriots up at Kemp's Landing, and he moves up the road to Kemp's Landing. The Patriots know he's coming. They attempt an ambush. They're not very well trained. The British soldiers are very well trained. They would turn directly into the ambush and assault through it. These are grenadiers. They're very seasoned guys. They know exactly what to do. Fixed bayonets coming at the Patriots, and they drive them into the woods and all the way to the banks of the Elizabeth River, where several men reportedly die trying to swim across
and
the
British,
river.
I think, lost one.
They lose no one. They have
no one.
They have a man by the name of Corporal Redfern, one of the grenadiers. He's wounded in the knee, and it's thought to be a serious enough wound, probably in the kneecap, that he would not be able to continue service. But the Patriots lose some men, killed, wounded, and captured. We know the name of one of the privates that was killed that day. His name was John Atkiss. There are still family members, Atkiss family members here. We're familiar with the family. And John was not married. He was 19 years old. His father was a former Burgess. They were ardent Patriot family. And John died on the battlefield. That is the one name of the one Patriot soldier we know. We believe there were others, but their names were never recorded. And so that is the one Patriot that we're able to actually identify his name.
And so how did this particular skirmish then set up for the next great battle in Virginia, the Battle of Great Bridge?
Well, Dunmore issued his proclamation immediately after the battle and after the skirmish. And his purpose was to entice enslaved individuals to join the crown and go against their previous owners and build his manpower pool. So the enslavers were really part of this discussion. But Dunmore only freed those that were of the rebels, he said. And this also created a martial law situation. So the locals lost control of their governance.
Important to note that the loyalists here who had slaves, they were not eligible to be free.
No, they were not eligible.
Okay, that was important to note.
It's a limited emancipation, and it's solely for the purpose of gaining manpower. Dunmore needed manpower. He only had 175 regular British soldiers. At the time of Kemp's landing, he had just received the second increment of soldiers. They had limited shipping. They came up from St. Augustine, Florida, which is where the 14th Regiment was garrisoned. And he was asking for more support, but he would not get it. So he knew he had to do something as the colonial governor to try to retain control of the colony. And that's what he chose.
You know, I just want to get inside Dunmore's head, especially after this happened. Is he looking at this more as a nuisance or a force to be reckoned with, or oh no, I think we're going to have some trouble with these people, or we have this under control?
I think he took it as a win and felt like they had it under control because they were able to scope in there and quickly and decisively win that unanticipated battle. The important parts are that it was the first bloodshed in the Revolution in Virginia. So it was Virginia's entree to actually get in there and fight because they actually did lose people at that.
I want to make it clear, these are the first shots fired in the American Revolution in Virginia.
The first people to die.
First people to die in Virginia.
First patriots to die.
Okay, see, this is why I have people who know what they're talking about in my podcast, because I need you to help me with this. Okay, that's very significant, though.
And this happened in Kempsville in Virginia Beach.
It is just fascinating. We're going to hold that thought, and we're going to come back because we're going to talk more about the skirmish, how it led to the Battle of Great Bridge, and of course, we have a big birthday coming up all year long, and we have some events going on at Kempsville and Great Bridge. I want to tell you all about after this, in this edition of History Through the Lens. The skirmish at Kemp's Landing, a major, well, not a major battle, but it leads up to a major battle in Virginia of the American Revolution in 1775. And we're talking about that today in this edition of History Through the Lens with Suzanne Camden and Patrick Hannum, both from the Daughters of the American Revolution and Sons of the American Revolution, respectively. The significance of this skirmish, can you just boil it down for me? What is the legacy of this skirmish that led to the Battle of Great Bridge?
So the individuals that were involved in the skirmish were local citizens that had volunteered to serve as soldiers and train to defend their liberties. That situation would continue, obviously, throughout the American Revolution as different units were formed. But these were some of the first. And what leads from here is Dunmore issues his proclamation that will liberate, with a limited emancipation proclamation of both the enslaved and indentured servants. There's a lot of indentured, white individuals, not just Africans, that are indentured for a number of years. And so he's trying to build his manpower. So the legacy about this is that he believes that he may be able to easily defeat those men that are down at Great Bridge. And that's what entices him to then order a direct assault at Great Bridge. It fails miserably because it's not the same people, number one. The men down there are much better trained and better led and much better equipped, and they're behind earthworks. And they are some very experienced individuals, particularly those from the Culpeper Battalion, from Culpeper, Fauquier, and Orange counties. And they know how to use their rifles.
And we have some reenactment video here that we covered. We go there most every year to cover the reenactment at Great Bridge. I think it's December 7th, I think it is?
6th this year.
Yeah.
6th? Okay, okay.
Yep.
And this is really, it's just fascinating to watch how these people are trained and how they're, how they learn about those tactics. You can notice the difference here watching this reenactment, how the Patriot forces there just don't seem to be, they're not in line, and there are the British. And did we really pioneer guerrilla warfare during the American Revolution? Or is that a loaded question?
I don't know. Ask the Marine.
He's nodding his head there.
Exactly.
Partisan warfare has always been a part of warfare.
Yeah.
When you're outnumbered, you figure out a way to get at your enemy. And so it's been around for, longer than America's been around.
Of course. Of course.
But when you're at a disadvantage, you utilize all the resources you have. And guerrilla warfare is a way, it's a method of employment of forces that's very difficult for conventional forces to deal with. You have to have a different approach and attitude to deal with irregular warfare.
And the Europeans always had this idea of, the French, the British, everyone had their armies, and they were almost gentlemen in a sense, and how they would approach the battlefield compared to what they found in the hills of America.
Exactly. And I think Kemp's Landing would have gone better, but we were very inexperienced, and the ambush failed because somebody shot early. And because of that early shot, the British were able to come in and quickly and easily not only take out the people that they saw, but the Patriots hadn't set up a good way for them to make an escape. So they were trying to escape through a swamp, and it just didn't work.
So VA 250 this year, as of this taping, we're taping in October, so we're a few weeks away, but I don't want to date this because this has got good information here from our guests. But on November 15th, you're going to have the reenactment of the skirmish at Kemp's Landing. And what do you hope that people take away from that?
Well, I certainly hope that people come and understand that we are where it happened, that this part of Hampton Roads, or Hampton Roads in general, had a huge part in what happened with the American Revolution. So I think that's the most important thing. It is 2 days. One day there's a commemoration on Saturday, and then we're doing reenactments both days of the skirmish itself.
So American history itself, I want to turn it over to Patrick here. I mean, what are the lessons that we learn from Kemp's Landing and Great Bridge here in Virginia and the American Revolution that goes to the founding of the country?
Well, when it comes to warfare, it's brutal. It's not clean. We see that now, on TV. You can flip the TV on and see what warfare does. It's not something you want to advertise as a pleasant experience. So they learn that very quickly. It's serious, and people die, and they're wounded, and so that comes out of this experience for the Patriots. They've been bloodied, and what I think it teaches the Lord Dunmore is, I'm up against some people that are a lot more determined and capable than what I thought, and so this is the whole story of the Revolution. It'll go on for 8 years, and warfare only ends with a political agreement. That's how war ends. They start many different ways, but they end with a political agreement. That's how the American Revolution ends. The British government tires of things, and they want to move on. And the French and the Spanish are quite amazed at the way the Revolution ends. The British give the Americans a great deal of territory, and the French and the Spanish get very little out of it. And they're a reason why we won. They supported us. So you never know how these things are going to finish. But Americans continue to support the revolution with the help of our allies.
And the legacy is the idea we were founded upon, that we didn't always live up to, but it was an idea of an ideal, I should say, that we still hold dear. And, that is what came out of this American Revolution. And how many countries look to us as still that shining city on the hill, with all of our warts and all, I should say.
And for more information about the skirmish at Kemp's Landing, people can go to the VB 250 website. And I believe that the commemorations and the events start at 10 o'clock both days on the 15th and the 16th of November. And of course, the VB 250 website and the VA 250 website has all kinds of information about all the spectacular events happening all over our area.
There are a lot of them
that you don't want to miss out on. And most of them are no cost, including this one. So,
and we really welcome families to come to this event as well. There'll be some activities for the young people and for the young students as well, to learn about what life was like, camp life. It's a living history event as well.
Yeah, and it's such an education when you see how generations that went before you, what they had to struggle with, basic things we take for granted. whether it be on the battlefield or on the streets or even in your home. And it was a different world back then.
It was.
It was very different. And we owe those folks a great gratitude for sticking with it, and so that we can be on a show like this and talk about it. Otherwise, that wouldn't happen. So
250 years, I don't know of any other republic, democracy, a government like ours that has lasted this long, constitutional republic with a written constitution. I think we are it. And that says a lot about the ideas on which the country is founded. And we're still striving to become that more perfect union, aren't we?
All the time.
we're constantly, and the insight that our forefathers had when they created the Constitution and allowed us to amend it because they knew things would change. And it's just the system, the three parts of government that were set up. All we owe them a great gratitude.
What's our future look like? Quickly, 10 seconds.
I just hope everybody can get behind the ideas we have established for freedom for this country, and it's a unifying force for all of us.
Patrick?
Cooperation and communications is what leads to success. People must communicate, they must cooperate.
And it helps too when you had a lot of brave people that tried to bring it about. 250 years ago, the beginnings of a new nation right here in Virginia. Thank you for joining me for this edition of History Through the Lens. And don't forget, you make history every day.